All right, calling to order the February 15th, 2024 Board of Directors meeting for WTA. Let's start with roll call, please.
Yes, Davidson.
Here.
Donovan. Thank you. Donovan.
Here.
Hawkinson.
Here.
Cortez.
Here.
Lautenbach.
Here.
Lilyquist.
Here.
Lund. Looks like Mayor Lund is absent. Sadhu.
Hi, I'm here.
Williams.
Here.
And Darwin.
Present.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. On to item C, employee recognition, 25-year service award for Julie, and Janet is going to say it.
Hi. Sure. So Julie has been here 25 years now this month, and she started in February '99. I put paratransit buses up there because she is all paratransit, and she started out as customer service rep. She went into paratransit dispatching in around 2005, and I can't say enough about Julie. She does all the training for CSRs, for dispatchers in paratransit. She was one of the 2 people that got the plane project done this last summer or last June, and worked there. And she has great attention to detail. She really cares about everyone. Her coworkers, she's like the mother of the dispatch area. She's always taking care of all the coworkers, all the drivers, even the customer. She has great. She just wants the customer to get where they're going. It's just amazing. And she is good-hearted, supportive, friendly, loyal. She's very funny. She's got an employee of the quarter, employee of the year, the 18 Shirley Tech Award. She's gotten that one for customer service too. And I worked with Julie side by side at night. We worked together and for years, and we always had a really great time at night. So I can't say enough about her. She's just an amazing worker. She's very loyal to WTA, and just her customer service is outstanding. And her caring for everybody is just amazing. So congratulations on your 25 years. So please, it's been great. I'm very happy to be here. Good work.
Thank you. All right, item D is a public hearing. We're going to start with an overview from you.
Yes, please. So Amber, if I could trouble you to, because we all saw with my technical capabilities last time. I need adult supervision.
We're not going all virtual.
Yeah. What we're here to talk about today is continuation on the Linden Station redevelopment. What the board is being asked today after the public hearing is to approve a resolution declaring unneeded portions of that property unneeded for transit to be surplus to enable affordable workforce housing out there. There still is, where ground lease it, so WTA would still retain ownership of the property, and then as the board authorized before, we've got an RFQ that will be issuing after this to select a partner to do that. So as a quick reminder, go back through the project a little bit before opening the public hearing. This project hits our mission squarely. As you see, our mission is to enhance our community, and then we do that through safe, friendly, efficient, reliable service, innovative and environmentally sound transportation solutions, and partnerships. And this project hits all of those. As we all know, through media, but also Department of Commerce has looked and found that Washington State needs to have about 1.1 million new housing units over the next 20 years. there is a affordable housing crisis here. Whatcom County, they estimate that we need somewhere in the neighborhood of 35,000 new units to be able to meet that. So this is an opportunity to use an underutilized piece of property to help with that, while also benefiting WTA through this mission by combining transit with housing. Makes it easier for the literature all seems to show that putting people with transit makes it much more convenient, putting it in a location that is easily for multimodal uses as well. It's within walking distance of a couple grocery stores. It's got pharmacies with that. It's within walking distance of an elementary school, and Steve Linden's doing a great job on some trails and other things to do that, which will also enhance with that. So next slide, please. This is just for location. This is where the property is located along Front Street and 19th in Linden. Bless you. This, as we talked about, the wins that come from doing this, which all align with what our mission is. So when we came up with this idea, we decided, hey, let's do a needs assessment, see if there is a need out there. You can see through the stakeholders listed at the bottom, we engaged through them to try to check and see, is there an opportunity or a need out there? Came back, yes, there is a need out there for affordable workforce housing. One of the things we learned is particularly in the farm worker community that's a real need out there. And then also people talked about the accessory kind of uses with that, food bank, childcare, some of these other things that could go along with that. So after we figured out, okay, there is a needs assessment, and I've been remiss in not complimenting Mayor Cortice and his staff for working with us throughout this process, throughout the needs assessment, with the RMC architect feasibility study, and so forth. They've been a great partner in helping guide us as we've been looking at that. So after the needs assessment said yes, there is a need, then we engaged RMC architects to do a feasibility study. See, could you build something on there? And they took a looked at geotech, environmental stormwater, zoning requirements, all those kinds of things. And the report is in your packet that they came back with, that they felt, and this is not a design for what it would look like, but a massing study to see, can it work out there? And they came back with that it could support about 110 to 120 units, which is a significant lift for families out in that area. They said it may be built in 2 phases, from financing, parking, showing how it works, those kinds of things. And it would also could give a partner the opportunity to see, okay, if the first one is farm workers, for example, is the second one down the road needed more for seniors or affordable housing, workforce, or so it gives some flexibility. So whether that happens or not is to be determined, but that was what Jeff McClure and RMC. Thanks. Amber can't read my mind. So this is just an example of what it could look like, phase 1 on that. So the yellow that you see in there is to meet the commercial requirements that would go along there, and then you can see the various sized properties. The light blue are the smaller ones. The deeper purple are larger units. And then if you go to the next slide, that will show, so phase 2 is more on the south end of the properties, where then that could be phased. And the really tiny writing at the bottom is just to show how the parking would work under the code. So if you go to the next slide, this is the proposed timeline. We're here in February to issue the RFQ, do the public hearing on it, issue the RFQ, get responses back. We're looking at closing that April 2nd, do interviews, reference checks, all those kinds of things by the end of April. Shooting to come back to the board on May 16th board meeting with a selected partner for the board's approval. Then enter into ground lease negotiations, try to develop a term sheet for the board's review, July, August timeframe as a check-in to make sure we're doing okay. And then in Q4, have the board approve the ground lease, sign it, and then we would transfer the ground lease where they would take possession in January, Q1, which times with their ownership or not ownership, but their possessory interest in it to be able to meet affordable housing timelines for financing and things. The one thing on here is there is in the front building along Front Street, there is a burger restaurant that is there that's leasing property. We have notified them that that lease runs out on its own terms in April of 25. We've notified them that we will not be renewing that lease to give them a long lead time to find an alternative location. And then that's still times because the partner would be going through design and permitting and all those kinds of things. So they would need it. Next slide, please. So with that, respectfully recommend opening the public hearing, and then we'll be asking the board to approve the resolution that is in your packet.
One question before the hearing. According to the feasibility drawings, WTA would be retaining enough, or it looks like one bus loading at the transit location. How is the amount of retained bus capacity decided or talked about?
So there's potentially two, one along Front Street and then one in the, and they may be paratransit and 40-foot fixed route, or microtransit or whatever it happens to be. This was just, can you put in, it was the massing study, can you put those things in there? Where it goes will be part of our negotiation with the whoever we select as we develop the design on where it goes, but to make sure this was designed to see, is there turning radiuses, is there enough room to get in, those kinds of things.
Can I follow up?
Oh.
If we surplus this property, how do we imagine retaining the right or the easement to use some of it for transit? Is that part of the discussion?
We'll still have ownership interest in it. So the land is still ours, so we can control where that goes. It would be rated that what our needs are, and then as the design goes, we would have to approve that works.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we open the public hearing? Looking at the little boxes, I see nothing. Okay. Do the time.
8:13.
Thanks. All right, 8:13, we're going to open the public hearing on declaring unneeded portions of the Linden Station property surplus, enable a public beneficial use. Citizens, are there any citizens who would like to address the board, online or in person? If you're online, please unmute. Address the board. Anyone? All right.
And for the record, we received no written comments.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. All right. We're going to close the public hearing at 8:13. All right. Board discussion.
I have a question, thanks. At the last go around when we were considering this, somebody brought up the parking. Is that kind of baked in to the design, the level of parking, or is that potentially going to be something that might change in terms of reducing the number of parking that's required? It's a lot of area.
So the RMC design, the massing study was, is there a way to put this number of units with the current code parking requirements on there? So it's a feasibility study on that. There would be discussion as the design goes forward with City of Linden through the regular permitting processes.
Go ahead.
Somewhat related to that, the housing is more farm workers who end up in various areas unserved by buses in the county, and they will need vehicles. So we want to accommodate the crowd we're trying to accommodate with vehicle parking.
That Paul?
Yeah, I have a little contrary view. I think what future is going is with minimal parking. I mean, it cost $40,000 for each parking spot we leave out there and not build on it or more. I mean, I've been reading articles, watching a video last night was in Arizona and few places, there are communities being built where there is no car parking, no garage, no parking, no nothing. I think it's a very valuable land. I'm not saying have zero parking, but I think that we should minimize parking, which is just barely necessary. That will be my comment. I think that the architects, other people, if they get directions, they have some national standards now or different places from other cities, what to follow when we assign them that minimize the parking, not what we have been doing last 40, 50 years. Thank you.
Kim, go ahead.
I'll just second what Executive Sidhu just said. If we can explore scenarios that have different levels of parking, I think that would be ideal to help make an informed decision and potentially maximize the number of units we can develop on the site.
And they need more buses in Linden. Michael, go ahead.
I move approval of a resolution number 352-24 declaring unneeded portions of Linden Station property surplus for our purposes.
Second.
All right, further discussion, questions, concerns? Eric, did you have your hand up?
No.
Okay. All in favor of approving this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Very, very exciting.
Thank you. Item E, citizen communications. Are there any citizen communications outside of the public hearing? If you are online, please unmute and address the board. Okay. And Vicki, no additional communication.
No.
Thank you.
That's my bad. I was like, what's going on? We did receive a comment over email regarding the evaluation guidelines on page 32. So I just wanted to plug that in. It's just the list of routes within the local urban classification. And they noticed that Route 24 is missing from that list. So I just wanted to plug that. That's been included in the final or added to the final document. So that change has been made.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about the noise.
Okay, any other citizen communication? All right. Moving on to item F, board action. F1, consideration of approval of WTA service evaluation guidelines. Tim Wilder and Michael Feifel.
Yeah, if I could just preface this for a minute. Just want to mention there was one change from the last time you saw that, and that is the title of this document. We're going to be calling it the service guidelines and not the standards. And the reason for that is just to indicate how we're going to use this information that will be used as in a data-informed way versus a hard and fast standard that you might use like for development standards or something like that. Right? So we want to just use that term as more indicative of how we'll use this to provide us information as we move forward with our service change process. So I just want to make that clarification before I turn it over to Michael for a short presentation.
Michael, go ahead.
Well, I still see the word standards in here. The guidelines then contain performance standards and service standards,
Correct.
but overall it's a guideline.
Yeah, we wanted to just not over confuse things and use sort of the general industry standard terms for the rest of the document. And at this late time, it felt like it was excessive to go and change the entire document. So hopefully it's not too much confusion, but overall we want to just indicate that these are guidelines and not standards. With that, Michael, over to you.
Thank you, Tim. Go ahead and Sweet. Yeah, so I will be giving a presentation on the evaluation guidelines. The past few weeks, we've gone through this in multiple iterations, and it's been, a long time coming, so we're super excited to be at this point. Just as a quick recap, as Tim mentioned, we have the overarching item, which is the fixed route evaluation guidelines, which consist of our performance standards, which house our equity measures, including the access to opportunity, the population or priority population indexes. And then we have our service standards, which we have been utilizing mostly in the past. That's our efficiency. How many people are we moving? How far are we moving them? And are we getting people to places on time? Both of those sets of standards contain their measures, and then targets and thresholds where applicable. And then we also have our design standards. So this is more for new routes or route realignments and adjustments to any sort of routes we have within our network. And then within that, we have route and stop characteristics, and then targets where applicable. And just as a reminder, we have all of these broken down by route typology. So it's super important that we look at the different operating environments for each type of route. And yeah, so just, got those all outlined there. And so last week we had a few remarks from the board that I wanted to address this week. Some great comments and great feedback, and thought it'd be crucial to kind of go over those and address them. So one of the comments was, can we add ambitious ridership targets and goals? So this document here, the evaluation guidelines, is designed to identify routes to be considered within the service change process. So we're kind of more trying to flag services that need some sort of assistance or some pushing to get onto the right track. However, an ambitious ridership goal may be better placed in our LRTP, and I think that's something that, yes?
LRTP.
Oh, sorry, long range transit plan. Yeah, so something that's within a larger policy document. And we are certainly willing and excited to pursue something like that. And we had some discussion within the planning team and felt that it'd be more of a systematic approach, right? So like ridership throughout the system, where do we want to get to? How do we want to get there? Yeah. So any questions or follow up on that one? Okay.
If you're online and have something, just speak because we can't see you. Okay, thanks.
Amber's got your back.
Okay, so there was one other that was, can we consider looking at the region or the corridor level? And that is certainly a possibility, but that is going to, it's a bit more of a deep dive and a lot more assessment on that topic. So it's over here, but the text got all messed up. So question on the top is solid, but so yeah, we felt that at this time we want to just focus on the route by route level and eventually get to the neighborhood or city level, or whether that's corridors, so like our rapid transit corridors. So that just takes a lot of peeling apart of very specific data. So whether it be boardings and performance at the stop level, it just takes a lot more deep diving to get to that. So we're happy with the route by route at this time, but as we mentioned, this is going to be a living document, and we can expect to see lots of changes in this process.
And I would add, Michael, that one of the driving factors for us will be our automatic passenger counters that will be deployed hopefully later this year, where we'll have more specific, more reliable data at the stop level boardings and the like.
So that means you can see where people are getting off and getting on and try to tie service.
Tie that into an area or a quarter basis.
Yeah, and super excited to see where people are getting off because it highlights those destinations within our community as well. And then with the final remark I'd like to address is, would weighting schemes impact the routes which are highlighted for or flagged for service adjustment? So I did a bit of a weighting exercise and varied the weight, highlighting the value of boardings versus passenger miles, costs versus hourly measures, and then priority population and the access to opportunity index. So I'm not going to go into the details of each scheme that I went through, but I can certainly provide that information if that's later discussion. So 4 out of the 8 schemes highlighted between 1 and 3 additional routes, where all the other schemes were highlighting all the same routes that we've seen with the unweighted route or the unweighted scheme. So we'll continue to explore weights, but we feel comfortable moving forward with this unweighted measure. So if you look at this chart here, the very left is the unweighted column. And as you can see, those that are highlighted in the red are pretty much level across the board. And the highlighted blue cells, that's where schemes have addressed or identified additional routes. But as you can see in this chart, it seems to be pretty standard throughout. Any follow-up on that, Michael?
No, I want to follow up with you just to get the flavor of what those schemes are.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I think this gives us confidence.
Yeah.
That adjusting the weights can sort of reveal a little bit more, but the unweighted scheme already captures the majority of what we need to know.
Yeah. Just some wrap up. Yeah, so just through the theme of this presentation, we see constant changes in regional travel behavior, data collection technologies, as Tim mentioned, WTA's operating environment, whether that be the land use conditions or the road network itself, new intersections. We expect these evaluation guidelines to be updated periodically. And as we do update them, we're going to see different types of changes that we'll be making to the document, some that will require board approval, and those will be adding standards for non-fixed route services. So we do plan to address our other services, including paratransit, van pool, and flex, and all those other things that we, and eventually microtransit that we cover, adding or removing standards for fixed route. So if we're going to add any additional measures, if we have the ability to measure a new metric, then we can add that in. And some of the things that we've talked about are, the impacts of route deviations and stuff like that. But we need sort of the automated passenger counters to measure those sort of metrics. And then adjusting targets and thresholds, which is something that we would have to come to the board for. And others, more minor, wouldn't require approval, would include adjusting the variables used for the analysis, and that's in land use measures, demographic information, or adding and removing countywide destinations. So Dan found, that there was a social service missing in the analysis. So being able to add and adjust those variables. And then updates to the descriptions of standards with explanatory text and graphics. So we do hope to make this a more beautiful, easy to read document than what is in your board packet. So just adding graphics to help explain the things that we're trying to display. And then small scale content and format versions or format revisions. So adjusting chapters in unsubstantial ways. And I'll open it up for questions before we...
Hey, questions? Discussion?
The automatic counters, do they, if an individual gets off or gets on, does it identify that individual where he gets off, or it's just people get on and get off? So we know how long the person is on the bus.
It will contain load information, not a specific individual because it's not tied to your pass, but it will we'll be able to use that for how many people are on the bus. So that will be super helpful for Whatcom service.
And just as an additional comment, it will also relate to the distance between stops. So then you can do multiplication to figure out how far people are riding on average, right? You won't know each individual's ride, but you can know how far they're going.
All right, further discussion? Questions, concerns?
What is it?
Let me.
I'll move we approve the fixed route evaluation guideline.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Anything further? All right, all in favor of approving the fixed route evaluation guidelines, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you. Up next, we have F2, consideration of approval of the purchase of 14 replacement van pool vehicles. Andy,
Yeah.
thank you.
Over here. So we are looking for board approval to purchase 14 vehicles, replacement of the van pool, replacing vehicles that are 2013 or older. There's a variety of vehicles there. I was going to give Michael an opportunity to jump in. He's kind of charged with the van pool program. So Michael, I don't know if you want to add anything to this.
Yeah. So just last year, so the Washington State put out a rideshare grant, and we applied for that, looking to replace these vehicles. And we were awarded, based off the estimate that we made for the vehicles that we were hoping to get, we were awarded $556,000, which is pretty good portion of 80% of the van purchase estimate. So that was really incredible. The state is doing a lot to try to improve van pool throughout the agencies within Washington, and we do already have one of the best performing van pool programs as a state. And so there's a lot of work going into this. We just changed the terminology from van pool to public transit rideshare. So that is something that might be coming to you guys in the near future. And yeah, so we're excited to move forward with this. We have seen some growth in our program since COVID. So that's been great as well. And we're at capacity, and I have a few other groups that are waiting and chomping at the bit to get a van. So we're also inquiring about getting smaller vans. So right now we have a pretty particular specific type of group driving, a 12 or 15 passenger van, all going to heavy industrial. But with the changes at the state level, we're hoping to move towards different industries as well, and tap into other markets. And we have some of our partners down to the south that are procuring Teslas, sedans, all these different vehicles, and pretty successful programs down there. So that's all I got.
All right. Kim, go ahead.
Can I ask a question? Can you define for me what the useful life benchmark is? Can you quantify what that is?
Yep, it's 8 years on the vans. And yeah, so these are, like I said, the ones we're replacing are 2013 or older.
Is there a mileage guideline as well?
I think it's 100,000.
Yeah.
I'd have to double check on that.
It is 100,000.
As
Yeah.
a minimum. If it gets more than that, then keep on it.
Yeah. So it's not. It doesn't. You can continue to operate it past that. And at WTA, when I started here, our kind of standard for starting to switch vans out was 150,000 miles. But then COVID and supply chain issues hit, so we were even going above and beyond that. But yeah, so these, having these lower mileage marks also makes great opportunity for our community van grant program, where we are able to grant vans to local nonprofits and government agencies. So that's something, we're replacing 14 vans. So the ones that are still in state, good repair, we'll be able to utilize for that program.
Eric?
Yeah, I know when I first got onto WTA, the van pool program was kind of in decline, and in some cases rapid decline, and COVID didn't help that. Where are we now in relation to that, and do we anticipate that going up or down, and what efforts are we making to make that program more robust?
Yeah, so when I came on, there was a bit of decline. So we had a lot of groups that were going to and from BP, and these groups consisted of fewer members. So part of that decline was consolidation of those groups. So the person that ran this position before me, because we weren't hitting state requirements for the term van pool or state law, they can put all the groups together, which took away quite a large number of vans. And then, yeah, so things started to decline up until COVID, and then they've been fairly steady. And then after 2022, we started to get more vans. So we're at capacity with 11 right now. We're running on, between 7 and 9 for a while. And yeah, there's, with the right vehicles, I get a lot of requests, and there's definitely some strategic planning that goes into this as well. Utilizing some of the work that our partners are doing down to the south to grow these programs. They're doing a lot of new marketing campaigns that are helping them get van pools back in. And it's a wonderful program that has a lot of benefit for the environment and our community. So I think if we can leverage that and start to get more van pool groups interested,
Michael, did I hear you say we're at capacity and you have some that are inquiring about a waiting list?
Yes. So this purchase will help us fill some of those groups that are on the waiting list.
Kim, go ahead.
I just had a question about I'm assuming, because it hasn't been identified otherwise, that these are all gasoline vehicles. And I'm just wondering what the consideration is when we're buying durable capital goods that would have a functional lifetime we're buying them in 24. That puts us, 2032 or beyond. That's when we want to be shifting to low or no carbon to meet our climate action plans as a community. So what is the framework for making capital purchases today when they'll be on the roads, when we want to have lower carbon vehicles on the road?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there's going to be, so we did have hybrids in our grant application, but with supply chain issues that plan has become a lot more challenging. They're a lot more difficult to procure at this time because we have other agencies that are going for them aggressively. And then to address the electric vehicle conundrum, there's a lot of policy. So I go to a state committee quarterly, and we discuss, and a lot of the agencies that have pushed out electric vehicles have bumped into the issue of not having a proper policy behind that for charging and charging infrastructure and charging at houses and all of that. So it's something that we're going to want to consider looking at for this program and potentially for the next round of purchases. We have 3 vehicles that will be past their useful life benchmark coming next year. So we're going to have to, look into replacing those. And I would love to get, plug-in hybrids and electric vehicles, but there needs to be a policy set in place for how those are charged and where we allow them to park, because there are issues with vandalism and all that stuff that I get to deal with.
Todd?
Thanks. So when we do our long-term budget, we have these planned capital outlays, and if we can remember the graph, we're going to be burning through our fund balances unless we get grants. Would this be an example of grants, something that we budgeted for that we didn't anticipate the grants, that now we do have the grants, so it's a little bit less of a burn through the fund balances?
No, Todd, we
we did the budget, we planned on receiving this grant. So we knew we had the grant when we did the 2024 budget.
Okay.
Make one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to address Marilyn's question about the electric vehicles or gas vehicles. And van pool is a net benefit for our community. So even if our vans are using gasoline, that's 5 or 8 or 10 people who would have otherwise been driving their own likely gas vehicle on the road. So it is definitely a net greenhouse gas reduction as we transition to zero emissions.
Michael?
And move approval of the purchase of 14 replacement van pool vehicles for a total cost of $783,000 and change, which we mostly paid for by a grant.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there further discussion or questions? Scott?
Often we get federal grants that are like 85-15, and this one's about 1/3, 2/3. So is this a different program than the federal program, or is it just, our van pool doesn't fall into that program?
This is a state program. Yeah.
And we can't get federal money for van.
I don't know if we can, but we aren't right now.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
I would say I would really feel a lot more comfortable about voting for this and knowing that we have 3 more coming up next year hearing staff say we will commit to creating a policy framework for how we're going to make the transition versus just saying we're going to want to consider. So I don't know if this organization has a history of accepting motions to direct staff work or what that looks like, but I would feel more comfortable about taking that vote if I knew that the next time this comes before us, we would have that policy framework for the transition.
So we'll take that on board, Mayor. This is less, if you can't see.
I know your voice.
All right, anything further? Okay, all in favor of approval of the purchase of 14 replacement van pool vehicles, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed?
Opposed? I was gonna be, I said yeah. All right. But no, we're gonna recognize that for the vote.
Go ahead.
I actually believe it'd be appropriate for Mayor Lund to make that request formally as a motion. I think the administration would welcome that clarity. Kim, I don't know if you want to do that.
Sure. I would like to make a motion to direct WTA staff to create a policy framework for how we will begin to transition to low or no carbon van pool vehicles. And that would include the challenges for at-home charging and a framework for how we begin to make that transition.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Scott?
I'll restate my mantra because there's new people in the room, but until we know where the power is coming from and how it's going to get here, how can we continue to move forward, to move to all electric when even in this past winter, we were 1% from brownouts and blackouts in our area because of lack of power, right? I see an issue with continuing to push this when we don't know where the power is coming from or how it's going to get here.
As I heard you say, what was your name again? I'm sorry, I'm new.
It's okay.
That the infrastructure is not there yet for a full transition. But if there's a communication between that executive and this executive to figure out how this is going to be implemented down the road, that would, rather than a motion, it would be communication.
I think some of the things we need to work through are from a fiscal standpoint, for example, who pays for the charging if it's at home, so there's a number of things we need to work through We do have with the city of Bellingham and interlocal on putting electric chargers at Cordata Station. So there are things that are underway. Mayor Cortez' point is well taken on where we got that. So there's power issues at various locations. So there's a number of things we need to work through, from supply chain to finance auditing issues, things. But that doesn't mean we can't develop a way forward, a framework for that.
And I believe the motion also said low carbon, which I would clarify. My intention behind that was hybrid. So.
And just make.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I do also just want to say, so for the smaller vans, anywhere from 7 to 15, the useful life benchmark is 4 years, 100,000 miles. Just wanted to make that correction there, and that's in the memo in the board packet. So that would quicken up that changeover cycle as well.
Okay, further discussion or questions? Go ahead.
I just want to support Scott's comment. I'm now receiving almost daily emails from PSC telling me where I am and in my neighborhood on usage and urging conservation. So continuing to push electrification concerns me a little bit. And I appreciate Mary's comment about the van pool automatically being, moving towards our climate policy because it's taking extra cars off the road daily. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, I've been somebody who is in favor of things like that mostly, but yeah, I'm also getting those daily calls, texts, emails about conserving power. And I think that the staff does a really good job of always keeping that in mind as we're moving forward. They did attempt to get some hybrids, but they were unavailable. So yeah, I don't know if it needs to be such a strong direction or not. I wonder what the staff thinks about this, actually. Go ahead, Scott.
I guess making it a formal motion makes it very formal, and I guess I agreed earlier on, like, let's have a few people, let's talk about it, maybe come back to this room with, this is kind of what it would look like. But making it so formal makes me like we're directing something in a very, very specific way for the future when we're not even sure what that future should look like. I guess I'd like to leave it at the staff level at this point, so I'll probably vote no.
Further discussion? Oh, Skip, sorry.
I would agree with you, Scott, at this stage of the game. Key words I heard were things like the infrastructure is not there yet. There's a lot of variables at this point, and that making a formal motion at the spur of the moment, maybe it wasn't at the spur of the moment, but it seemed like it, is not necessarily the best way to go to direct our staff to make this a priority. I think at this juncture, a more informal process would be better. And I think Les understands that the direction.
Yeah, I've seen the staff always go in board direction just off of head nods. So
yeah.
Eric first, and then Michael.
Yeah, I just want to agree with Scott and the others who had mentioned it, that I think we need to look at it, but I don't think it needs to be in such a formal process.
Okay, Michael?
Well, what I heard Mr. Harpool say is that the major impediment to considering a transition is the fact that we don't have a policy which would guide how that would be supported from the users and participants in the program. And so if that is a policy impediment, it seems to me we should work to remove that policy impediment, which is not the same as removing all the other practical feasibility considerations which would continue to exist. So let's remove the internal impediment, or at least develop that framework, and then we can also confront the feasibility issues separately. So this motion, I think, has to do with removing an internal impediment, which has to do with our lack of policy and guidance on how we would operate hybrid or all electric vehicles.
Kim, go ahead.
I'll lower my hand. I think Michael just summarized my comment.
Just, I think to clarify what Michael was saying, policy is internal, we need to do that, but there's also, we're waiting for guidance from like the auditor's office on how does that look like if you're allowing to take it home to park and who pays for it? Do they get reimbursed? You know, what kind of documentation? I mean, there's a lot of details on those things that, so correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, through your state work that you're working on, there's a number of those issues that are working.
Right. Yeah. So it's more about the policy infrastructure than it is the physical charging infrastructure, you know, because if people can park them at their house and charge. And then there's also in areas where there is that infrastructure issues where, you know, the rideshare vehicles will plug in and, you know, they leave for the night. Right. So just like trying to write that policy on not taking up public charging infrastructure. But if you do it at home, who's paying for it? You know, where's all that, where's that exchange at? So
I think Island Transit is our closest neighbor who's going through that.
Yeah.
Stacy.
Yeah.
So we can reach out to them and piggyback off of what they've learned in terms of policy. Because we were talking about people taking it home and they tried to figure out, do we reimburse them for putting the home charger? So we don't have to reinvent this wheel. I think.
right, this is something we can definitely rely on our peers for.
WISTIP for liability if they do take it home and something happens, there's a fire. I mean, there's a number of things we're working through. So, but regardless whether it's a motion or not, definitely heard loud and clear that we'll work on things and come back to the board with what this could look like, where the barriers may be to developing a policy, because we're waiting for state guidance or insurance to get back to us and those kinds of things. But loud and clear.
I feel comfortable with what Les just said. I feel comfortable withdrawing if Michael agrees my formal motion, if staff is committing to coming back with a presentation on that.
Well, I kind of wanted to go down in flames, Kim, but okay.
Well, here's the lighter.
All right, so we're withdrawing the motion?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Good discussion. Moving on to F3, consideration of approval of contract to Ameritrans Service Corporation, doing business as Transit Resource Center, TRC, for factory vehicle quality control inspections and Buy America audits. Say that 10 times.
Did we vote on F2?
Andy.
Yeah, so seeking approval from the board for GM contract with Ameritrans Service. This is for audits on our fixed route buses as they come out of the factory to make sure they are meeting federal standards.
All right, discussion, questions, motion?
Did we vote on the main motion for the vans?
No, we did not. We
Yeah.
do need to complete a vote on that.
Oh, we didn't vote on
No,
the
no,
main.
my motion was after.
We voted on the vans and then the motion was after it, and that was withdrawn.
Yes.
Yeah. that's-
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, at least
I marked it off the list.
Yes.
Sorry.
I wrote down the
And I'm more awake than I was earlier in the meeting.
Vicky, do you need a first and second, or Amber, did you catch? Okay. Michael and Jen, Vicky, for the record.
Thank you.
Okay, further discussion. All in favor of approval of the contract to Ameritrans Service Corporation for factory vehicle quality control inspections and Buy America audits,
Do we have
please?
a motion on this one?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was Scott. It was Scott and Jen.
That's right.
No, not me. You guys messing with me on purpose? Yeah, it was you.
Everybody needs more coffee.
I'm operating on no caffeine, so sorry.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Excellent.
So we do have one more item on the report to board, which was an update on the on-demand service. Oh, we have, sorry, I jumped ahead.
I'll move approval.
Thank you.
Move us along.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, motion in a second for approval of the consent agenda. Any questions about that? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, excellent. Reports to the board.
Now, so we've got about 4 minutes left on the agenda. Should we slide this? This is an update on, Mary's leading the effort on the on-demand service study in light of lessons learned from Linden Hop and what we can do to create a on-demand program countywide, what that would look like in various zones and those things. So it's probably longer than a 4-minute discussion. Should we?
Michael's itching to get out of here.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to rush the report.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Mary, will you be around if we put it on for March 7th?
Yes. Sorry, I'm gone the next week. I'm just like trying to remember, but yes, I will be here on March 7th.
Okay. Great. Other business? Announcements? We will adjourn. Thank you, everybody.